Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
Now, that's where they keep migrants and asylum seekers who've come to this country. And we know that the far right may be turning up as well.
Hypocritical, radical, far-left Labour MP Clive Lewis refuses to take an illegal migrant into his own home and... The Taliban bans female doctors. I'll just say it. Some cultures are worse than others. Plus...
Minister, your response today regarding frozen pensions was a bitter disappointment.
I speak to a 99-year-old World War II veteran who's had her pension frozen. She's got a message for Keir Starmer. Talking of Starmer...
He promised that he would stop the boats this year.
I think the way to stop the boats is to smash the criminal gangs.
People crossing in small boats across the channel. We have to stop that.
Well, he hasn't stopped the boats, he's stopped the oats. It's illegal to advertise porridge now, but...
In 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to help change the world.
We have become Generation Rebel.
Yes, absolutely. It turns out that a radical Islamic cleric is allowed to advertise on the London Underground. Also...
Manchester United dropped plans for their players before Sunday's game against Everton to come out on the pitch wearing a special Adidas jacket in support of the LGBTQ+ community.
Another Muslim player refuses to wear LGBT clothing. The whole Man United team ditched the kit in solidarity. Islam is officially the top of the league when it comes to woke. Oh, and the Guardian's gone on strike today.
You, respects you, and gets you round the table. So, solidarity, everybody. It's a fantastic turnout, and a really proud occasion to be here with you today. Thank you.
Did anyone notice this? Anyone notice? Any of their readers notice? No, me neither. On my panel tonight is the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Oh, and it's really nice to see a man on top of his game.
As an integral part of a broader strategy to enhance connectivity in Africa.
Wake up, Mr. President. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Islam is now top of the woke Premier League. Next.
Good evening. It's just after 9 o'clock. Here are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The French government has collapsed as the Prime Minister Michel Barnier loses a no-confidence vote. It means that the 73-year-old has become the shortest-serving French Prime Minister since 1958. The vote was sparked after fierce opposition to Mr Barnier's proposed budget for next year. He pushed ahead with using special powers to force through the budget, having failed to receive support from MPs. That decision angered the left-wing alliance New Popular Front and Marine Le Pen's right-wing National Rally. The Tories' bid to overturn Labour's controversial farmers' inheritance tax raid has failed after being thrown out of the Commons today.
The ayes to the right, 181. The noes to the left, 339.
The Conservatives had tabled a motion to condemn the tax, but after a vote in Parliament, it failed by 339 votes to only 181. Labour had faced internal division over the vote, with some of Starmer's own MPs voting not to break their word on the party's manifesto promise not to introduce changes to the agricultural property relief. The government amendment was accepted without a need for a formal vote. CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, was reportedly shot and killed in New York City. Mr. Thompson, who had been the chief executive of the insurance giant since April of 2021, was killed outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The gunman, who was wearing a face mask, fled the scene, with a manhunt currently ongoing. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch says this does not appear to be a random act of violence. It appears the suspect was lying and waiting for several minutes. Police in Germany have carried out a major series of dawn raids targeting people smugglers who bring migrants to the UK in small boats. More than 500 officers launched operations in several cities, with UK authorities supporting the crackdown. The smugglers are accused of facilitating deadly channel crossings from France to Britain. The investigation is being led by France, but the UK is closely involved as crossings continue to surge. Over 20,000 migrants have reached the UK since Labour took office in July. And finally, coming to a chimney near you, the real face of Father Christmas has been revealed. A new research study has reconstructed the face of Saint Nicholas, who was an early Christian saint born in the year 270, whose reputation for gift-giving inspired the Dutch folk figure of Sinterklaas, who later became the festive figure we all know and love today. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in an hour's time.
Good evening. Welcome to Woke Britain, where Islam is at the top of the league and Christianity is in the relegation zone. A Muslim Ipswich player refused to wear the rainbow armband to show support for the radical LGBTQ+ pressure group Stonewall's campaign. The Premier League, the FA, etc., they won't punish him. Today, it's emerged that Manchester United player Nasser Mazraoui, also a Muslim, refused to wear a rainbow-coloured jacket for the warm-up of their game against Everton. What did the entire Manchester United squad do? They all refused to wear it to show solidarity with him. Well, I'm a Manchester United fan. You know, I'm not trying to dig the squad out unnecessarily here, but the fact is they picked Islam over the LGBTQ+ community. Well, why? Because the worst thing you can do in British society is offend Islam. But it's a bit odd, because just a couple of years ago, Manchester United's former director of communications was making a big song and dance about how much the club supports LGBTQ.
I think we as a club have a proud history of diversity and inclusion, of promoting that, actively promoting it. We're a club open to all nationalities, all creeds, and of course all sexual identities.
What happens when you have to pick though, mate? Sky Sports News reported the story, but they didn't name the religion, Islam.
What about the rainbow armband controversy? Because that's been going on as well. You've got a development on that, haven't you, today?
Yeah, there have been some developments today regarding Manchester United. Now, it's emerged that Manchester United dropped plans for their players before Sunday's game against Everton to come out on the pitch wearing a special Adidas jacket in support of the LGBTQ+ community.
Okay.
Now, the reason they dropped plans to wear those jackets is because one player said he didn't want to wear the jacket.
Why not? Why not? So, Islam is at the top of the table, isn't it? But I wondered what comes next in Britain's woke league table. Is it Black Lives Matter or is it LGBTQ? Well, it's LGBTQ over Black Lives Matter, I'm afraid. How do we know this? Well, we've got a perfect example. Crystal Palace and England defender Mark Gay, a black man, actually wore the rainbow armband twice, but wrote something on it that might offend some members of the LGBTQ community. So we'll take the knee. Yay, Black Lives Matter. Not that black guy, because he doesn't have the correct views about LGBT, does he? No, but the Muslim players, who also don't have the right views, they're fine. But this also revealed what's bottom of the league table in the woke league, and it's Christianity, isn't it? What was it that Mark Gay wrote on that rainbow armband? He wrote, "I love Jesus," and then he wrote, "Jesus loves you," during the next fixture. The FA clamped down on him. They said there can be no religious statements during games. Well, look, I would politely argue that the Muslim players were making a religious statement by refusing to take part. That was about their religion, wasn't it? They face no action whatsoever. Mark Gay's father, a Christian church minister, is absolutely spot on when he says, Jesus loved everyone, therefore by saying I love Jesus on his armband, I really don't see what is offensive and what the problem is. The country is a Christian country. If you look at what the LGBT community are doing, they are trying to impose on others what they believe in. It's belief against belief. But at the end of the day, everyone has a right to an opinion. Look, this for me isn't really a football story. It's a revelation about our entire society. Do not offend Islam at all costs. You must wear the rainbow stuff, otherwise you're a homophobe. Take the knee unless you're a racist, despite Black Lives Matter publishing a Marxist political manifesto. And if you're Christian, with the traditional Christian beliefs, well, frankly, you should probably just shut up and have a very merry winterval. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We've got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and we've also got journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Is this right now, Mark? Do you think Islam is top of the woke league table?
It probably is, actually, Patrick. I mean, it's a bit difficult, you know, what can cancel, you know, can A cancel B, but can B also cancel A? Now, I'd say this about football. I think you're right, this is a wider cultural story than just football. But football needs to get out of all of this altogether. There shouldn't be a hierarchy of religions and political positions. It should avoid controversy at all costs. Football is controversial enough already without taking a particular stance on which religion you agree with or disagree with, or whether you support the Stonewall campaign or not. Now, I know sometimes that gets to people saying, well, is the poppy a religious or a political symbol? I mean, I think it's OK to use symbols which are completely universal, you know, singing the national anthem, having the St George's Cross or the Union flag. But anything that looks like it can be divisive, the best policy for football is total silence. Otherwise, you do this Stonewall jacket and somebody complains about it. So they should get out of the whole lot.
You force it on people. You do force it on people, and then when someone goes, well, I'm sorry, I just don't want to take a part of that, then you try and vilify them for it.
Yeah, look, let me just clarify something you said there. The poppy is in remembrance to people that died so we could be here today.
Sure, of course.
Gave their lives for our freedom. Your sexuality means nothing to me. I don't care if you're gay, straight, if you go with women, men, trans people, all three. I don't care. I go to football to watch football. I don't want to see rainbow laces and rainbow armbands. That does nothing for the LGBTQ and a million letters community. If anything, the small amount of homophobes and angry people in this, it makes them worse. Look, I've got 3 kids. The statistical probability is one of my kids could end up being gay. I would support my kids throughout. I would even be even more protective. Very few people in this country attack anyone because of their sexuality. This whole me, look, I'm wearing a rainbow thing. All these, look, I go Tottenham. I'm a season ticket. I have to look across the stands to me, a progress flag, the rainbow flag with all the different bits. Now, for me, that's offensive. For me, that indicates or supports,
it's a political symbol.
Yeah, the targeting of children. I don't want to see it.
Many people would agree.
I think we need to get this out of football because people just want to see their favourite players play football.
Nina, is this not actually, just to make it a bit more about wider society as well, when you've got the woke brigade, who seem to be, very happy, pro-Palestine, you can't be, everything's Islamophobic, all of that stuff. But then you actually look at what that means a lot of the time, and there are vast swathes of the Muslim community who are absolutely dead against the LGBTQ plus community. And now, lo and behold, it's playing out. It just happens to be playing out on a football pitch.
Well, can I just... You said it's not about football, but you started with football, so can I just say... I have zero interest in football. I've watched 2 football matches in my life. One was the World Cup final in 1966.
You're not old enough.
Of course I am. And
that's the last time we won.
Exactly. And so I never watched another. And then was it the Euro finals when we came second or something? I watched that.
Spain.
Boring.
Okay.
Anyway, so I care nothing for football.
Right.
Having said that, I also feel that religion is one of the most divisive factors in society and causes so many problems around the world today, and has done and will continue to do so. So religion should be kept out of sport.
Nina, can I ask you, why is it all right for a Muslim player to say that he doesn't want to be part of the LGBTQ law, but when a Christian player does, he gets vilified?
No, the Christian player did not get vilified. He was not. No, he did not. He was not officially criticised. I read it.
The bloke wasn't criticised at all.
No, well, never mind, he wasn't criticised. The thing is, I read up about it today. I said I don't care nothing. The FA has a strict rule: no religious insignia at all, none whatsoever. And so when he said, I love Jesus, or Jesus loves you, that is signifying, that is actually making a religious statement. Now, that goes against the FA rules. So he's not been criticised, but it was pointed out to him that he was in contravention of the rules.
The problem here is, I think you can take the rainbow armband as a political symbol. So I rather support the FA's view of no politics, no religion. There are probably some exceptions in the margin. I mean, Catholic players sometimes cross themselves as they walk onto the pitch. I don't think you should get a yellow card for that.
Can you imagine?
But in terms of big claims about God or politics, get rid of all of them. That means no, I love Jesus. It means no, I love Allah, and it means no, I love LGBT+.
But can you imagine? Look. You can go after someone like Mark Gay, who's the son of a Christian minister, I think he is, who's obviously got what you might class as, I imagine, relatively fundamentalist traditional Christian views, okay, in a Christian country. So it's all right to single out. Whereas if you see one of these one of the Muslim players that's doing it, apparently all the players will just show solidarity with you, and you pick Manchester United, who I am a fan of, by the way. The players there picked showing solidarity with him over showing solidarity with Rainbow Laces.
Online, I criticise the Church of England a hell of a lot. I criticise Justin Welby. I go in on the Church of England for facilitating the abuse of children over the last few years. But I'm never called Christianophobic. I'm never attacked online for attacking the Church of England. But if I dare criticise Sadiq Khan or a Muslim figure or something within that religion that I think maybe I don't agree with...
Politically, on something that's got nothing to do with Islam.
I am called Islamophobic, and it's normally by woke, middle-class, white lefties on Twitter. These people are deranged, and I think it's become like a bit of a cult-like thing that you've got to align with Islam and you've got to align with LGBT, and then you are seen as the moral person in this country.
Would you agree that maybe Christianity is bottom of the woke league table, Nina?
Well, first of all, I'm so sick of hearing this word woke, 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 woke. You're kind of obsessed with it.
That's because you are woke, Nina.
I am not woke, and I've never claimed to be woke.
I think most of the audience would agree with me.
I am not woke. I have always had my own opinions, and they're strong opinions, and they're nothing to do with what's in fashion or what's not in fashion. Right. I've always been absolutely down the line with that. And I forgot what was your question.
Do you think Christianity's at the bottom of the well, I don't know what to call it now, league table?
You delude yourself in thinking that this is basically a religious country when 3/4 of the clergy, the C of E clergy, admit that Britain is a secular state because there are so few people that go to church these days that less than 50% of people are Christians, 7% are Muslims, by the way, and less than 50% are Christians. And so we don't kid ourselves that we're a Christian country. We're a secular country.
Fine, but we've got used to in this country criticising Christianity, even lampooning it, taking the mick out of it. And exactly the same rules and conduct should apply to all other religions without fear or favour. And it doesn't seem that it applies to Islam. We can mock Christianity without a worry in our minds.
Yeah.
But mocking Islam, that seems to be a different category altogether.
There's not been a single question asked, as far as I can tell. I might have missed it. OK, but there's not been a single question asked from real prominent media figures or chattering classes or wise societies about, well, hang on a minute, what does this latest Rainbow Laces issue maybe hint at? Does it hint at that maybe there are certain aspects of the fundamental Islamic religion that are dead against LGBTQ+.
Yes, I think we all know. Well, I think we all know that.
But then why do so many people... Why can't you call that out at times? If we live in this country where everyone else gets called out for that, why can't you call it out? But
there are devout Christians that are very much
literally, we're talking about
homosexuality. So we can say it about them as well.
But also against homosexuality.
Let's remember that LGBT+ is a big business for the corporate world.
Exactly.
They're never going to give it up.
Football has traditionally been completely homophobic. How many gay footballers are there?
Yeah, basically
more than we know.
Yeah, because they don't dare come out.
Exactly.
Because it's totally homophobic. So the LGBTQ, the rainbow thing is actually trying to redress a balance that's been wrong for... Well, since time began.
Lively start. Thank you very much. I've got loads more coming your way, as you would expect, but it's time now for the biggest and best, the greatest Great British giveaway this year. It's your chance to win 50 grand in tax-free cash, and it's the biggest cash prize ever given away, actually. Here's how it could be yours.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting. And worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, are Brits now being jailed for daring to speak the truth about grooming gangs? But first, well, are some cultures a little bit less valid than others, do we think? It's time now for the head-to-head. So, the Taliban's decision to ban women from training to become midwives and nurses in Afghanistan has quite rightly sparked outrage. Women and girls were left in tears and sang to each other in comfort after Taliban officials turned up to shut down one nursing college yesterday. Well, it prompted a lot of people to point out that perhaps not all cultures are as valid as others, which is what Tory leader Kemi Badenoch was slammed for suggesting back in September.
You've written this morning about immigration, and you write that we cannot assume that all cultures are equally valid. So which cultures, in your view, are less valid than others?
Oh, lots. Cultures that believe in child marriage, for instance, or that women don't have equal rights. I actually think it's extraordinary that people think that's an unusual or controversial thing to say. Of course, not all cultures are equally valid.
So tonight I'm asking just that, are all cultures really equally valid? Let me know your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. You can, of course, tweet me at GBNews while you're there. Go and vote in our poll. Going head-to-head on this now are the chief political writer at Spikes, Brendan O'Neill, and the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Krish Kandiah. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Brendan, I'll start with you. Are some cultures less valid than others?
Absolutely. Some cultures are inferior to other cultures. So the Taliban's culture of barbarous misogyny is inferior to British culture, which tends to value women and treat women equally. I think this reluctance to say that some cultures are not as good as others really demonstrates how far we've fallen down the well of moral relativism, where we're even reluctant to say that the Taliban-ruled country of Afghanistan has worse moral values than somewhere like Britain or somewhere like America or somewhere like France. We shouldn't shy away from saying that when a government treats women like second-class citizens, and in fact treats them like animals, that is an inferior culture that we should aspire to challenge and to change.
OK. Chris, same question to you. Do you think it's fair to say that some cultures are fundamentally less valid than others?
I think it's dangerous to write off a whole culture because of bad actors. The Taliban is not the same as Afghan culture. There's a distinction there. It's the same as saying the Ku Klux Klan's not the same as American culture, or the IRA is not the same as Irish culture. There's good and bad in every culture, and there's good and bad in every person, and I think we need to be able to call it out. I think it's unfair to compare the best of British culture with the worst of Afghan culture. Those Afghan women who are being persecuted, they are very proud to be Afghan, but they stand different and distinct to the Taliban practices. I think if you think about our history, people wrote off Jewish culture and thought it was okay to therefore exterminate Jewish people. They said Jewish culture was less valid, and that's the heart of anti-Semitism. So again, I think we've got to be very careful about any kind of cultural superiority.
OK. Brendan, do you want to come back to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but comparing criticism of Taliban cruelty with the racial desire to exterminate the Jews, I think that's a low blow, I must say. And that really demonstrates how bad this discussion has got. You know, it is not racist to criticize the Taliban. It is not racist to stand up for women of the Muslim world who are being persecuted to an extraordinary degree. And one of the problems we have in the West today, in the morally cowardly parts of the West, is that there is a real reluctance to stand shoulder to shoulder with women who are being persecuted in Afghanistan, in Iran, and other parts of the Muslim world. You know, a couple of years ago, over 700 young women and young men were slaughtered on the streets of Iran for the crime of asking for more freedom, for the crime of women saying we don't want to have to wear the hijab when we go out in public. They were slaughtered in their hundreds for that, and there was very little solidarity expressed among so-called Western progressives. The same now with what the Taliban is doing to the women of Afghanistan. They are ripping every single freedom away from them, every single basic element of life. And there is very little solidarity over here because people are so scared of being called Islamophobic that they are essentially abandoning these women to their cruel fate.
Could you understand, Chris, why perhaps when people look around Western Europe and America, Canada, you know, Australia, Japan probably as well, and then they look at vast swathes of the Middle East dominated by Islamic regimes, that some people do come to the conclusion that our culture, Western culture, is superior?
Well, look, I want to say I do stand in solidarity with the Afghan women who are being persecuted. I've been working to try and get as many Afghans out of the clutches of the Taliban. It's possible to stand against the Taliban and yet still believe that Afghan culture is a positive. And look, where did British culture come from? Our values actually originated from the Middle East. We're a Christian country. You were just saying it yourself. Where did Christianity originate from? We didn't dream it up over here. It's a Middle East export. So to say the whole of Middle Eastern culture is invalid actually cuts off the branch that we're standing in. Our culture in Britain owes its...
We've moved away from things like child marriage, though, Chris, haven't we? In a way that perhaps other countries in the Middle East have not, really.
Again, look, I think it's possible to stand against cultural practices like child marriage and say it's wrong without writing off the entire Middle Eastern cultures.
OK, all right, Brendan, yeah, just come back to that then, because I think it is... Yeah, all right, there's always outliers, you know, and I certainly don't want to cast a giant net over absolutely everybody and all of that kind of stuff. But I worry that there are maybe aspects of the same culture that we've been talking about here when it comes to the Taliban, or maybe being a bit more broad to that kind of like more hardline fundamentalist Islamic culture that appears to be in many states in the Middle East. I worry that we are actually seeing more of that here now.
Yeah, I worry about that too. And, you know, I think there's this reluctance to say that the way some people live is not as good as the way that other people live. So when I hear people making excuses for the fact that there are older immigrant women in Britain, for example, from parts of the Muslim world who can't speak English, and then that's celebrated as diversity. How wonderful that we have all these languages. But those older immigrants can't engage with society in the way that the rest of us can. They are less equal as a consequence of their linguistic failures. And so again and again, we see these communities really being betrayed by so-called progressives. And it's difficult to be a homosexual in some of these communities. It's difficult to be an outspoken woman. It's difficult to be a woman who says, well, I don't want to wear the hijab. I want to go out with my hair flowing. I don't like the way in which we betray parts of those communities who want to live more freely, all in the name of maintaining the multicultural ideology. We've got to speak more frankly about these things.
All right, can I just thank you both for a really, really good, solid discussion there on what is, you know, by definition, a tricky topic. But, you know, this is one of the reasons why I think GB News exists, so we can have these kind of conversations. Thank you very much, chaps. Great stuff. Who do you agree with? Well, let's have a look, shall we? The question was, are some cultures less valid than others? Molly on X says some cultures are treated as less valid than others, but who has the right to make a judgment on validity? Alex says maybe valid is not the right word, but there are definitely cultures with inferior values. And Tom says, if all cultures are equally valid, why have we bothered evolving our own? One cannot embrace progress and the success of the last century while maintaining all futures are equal. OK, I think I should have said cultures. But anyway, 83% of you agree that some cultures are less valid in our poll. 17% of you say they are not. Well, talking of a bit of culture, I think it's all too often in this country that our Christian culture doesn't really get the celebration that it deserves. But we are not approaching Winterval. We're not really approaching whatever you would call it, the big festive day or whatever. It's Christmas Day that's coming up, isn't it? And we are hearing from church ministers right across the country. Each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 4.
Hi, I'm Richard England, Vicar of Crofton Parish. We live in a future-orientated age. If it's new, if it's innovative, if it's different from what's gone before, we tend to assume that it's good or that it's positive. If it's old or familiar, we can be a bit sniffy about it. Sometimes old is vintage, often it's outdated. But the Christmas story is as old and familiar as anything in our society. Whether you have any faith background or not, you probably know about the wise men and the shepherds and the baby in the manger. Because it's so familiar, we can lose something of the shock, the awe, the earthquake that the Christmas story introduces into human history. But at the heart of the Christmas story is an idea that can still turn our lives upside down today. There is a God. We are not alone, and that God cares enough about us to get involved in our world. Everything that was written in the past, the New Testament says, was written to teach us. And perhaps the most important thing we need to know of all can be found in the most familiar story of Christmas.
And you can see all of our very special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by visiting gbnews.com/Advent. Merry Christmas, everybody. Coming up, a 41-year-old man has pleaded guilty to making racially aggravated comments about grooming gangs. He said that young white girls are being raped by these grooming gangs who worship the Prophet Muhammad. OK? Some Brits are now being punished, are they? And sent to prison for simply, in some cases, telling the truth. Former MP for Rochdale, Simon Danchuk, joins me very soon. But first, he came for our vapes. Then he came for our cigarettes. And now the Prime Minister is coming for our porridge. His government has smeared the British breakfast staple as, quote, junk food and will ban porridge TV adverts in a bid to slash obesity rates. Will it work? Fitness expert Mr. Motivator doesn't think so. He joins me live and is next.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a lot of wet and windy weather to come as we go through the next 24 hours, and we've already seen some of that pushing its way in across the UK. It's all due to a system that's come in from the Atlantic and it's making its way eastwards, bringing some heavy rain, some strong winds. That's already happened across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. Most of the rain's clearing away here, but some strong winds continuing overnight around northern western Scotland in particular. For England and Wales, it is going to be a wet night, but the rain becoming confined to the far southeast by dawn tomorrow morning. We are actually going to see temperatures rising as we go through the night, so it's actually going to be a milder start to the day tomorrow compared to some recent mornings. If we look first thing, and yes, it will be quite wet first thing across parts of the southeast, the rain clinging on, but it will clear away through the morning. Slightly drier further west, just a few showery outbreaks, but also some bright sunny spells, and a similar story further north, mostly dry, a few showers around coastal parts, and the winds will have largely died out, but they are going to pick up again later on. That's because we have another system coming in from the west. So although there will be a decent amount of dry and perhaps bright weather for a time for many of us, we do have further wet and windy weather coming in, particularly across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern and western parts of England and Wales. Here the rain is going to be pretty heavy at times, and those strong gusty winds could cause some problems too. Temperatures are going to be above average for the time of year, but not feeling particularly pleasant with the heavy rain and the strong winds. Most of that, though, will clear through overnight into Friday, and then Friday itself actually brings some decent, dry, sunny weather for many of us before another system comes in from the west later on, and this is likely to lead to a pretty unsettled day for many of us on Saturday, with some heavy rain and some very strong winds possible before a slightly drier picture again on Sunday. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Stop the oats. Sir Keir Starmer is coming for your breakfast this evening. Yes, Labour have labelled British breakfast staples such as porridge and muesli as junk food in their latest crackdown on childhood obesity. But if kids fancy a sausage roll before school, according to the government advice, they can help themselves. TV adverts showing unhealthy food are set to be banned before 9 p.m. from next October, in a move that will apparently save the NHS billions. Sadiq Khan's Transport for London has banned junk food ads since 2019. That's despite allowing ads depicting radical Islamic preachers and ads encouraging support for assisted dying. And in that time, can you guess what's happened? Have we had a track record of success, do you think? No, the childhood obesity rate in London has risen by 53%. Kids are getting fatter. They're everywhere. Fat kids. You can't move for fat kids. Well, let's hear the thought of fitness expert Mr. Motivator. Mr. Motivator, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. Do you think that adverts for things like porridge should be banned?
You know, I think the subject matter is a lot wider than that, and I cannot understand
why we're making this move of trying to ban adverts, because I think at the end of the day, what we need to do is to inform people of what's good for them and give them informed information so they can make an informed choice. I hope you can hear me well, because I'm on a ship in the middle of the ocean at the moment.
Fantastic. Oh, you're motivating an entire ship. I love it. No, it's great. It's fantastic. So you don't think the idea of banning things like muesli is going to make a blind bit of difference?
Well, here's what I think the focus should be. The reason why we have childhood obesity, I think it boils down to a number of different things. One is kids not moving as much as they used to. In my days, right, what used to happen, you used to play until 11 o'clock at night in the playing fields, in the park, and then you go home eventually. Kids are no longer moving as much as they used to move. I'd like to see the government spend more time setting an example of what should be happening by all of those MPs getting fitter and healthier, first of all, and then you can start focusing on what people eat. But if you stop movement, people are still going to be putting on weight every single moment, unless you've got a medical condition. And there's no reason on earth why children PE lessons should be cut, why we should not be encouraging them to move more.
Yeah. I mean, the whole madness of this is that you're allowed to advertise a sausage roll. So you could advertise a sausage roll at, like, midday, but if you wanted to advertise Quaker's Oats or something like that, probably, you'd have to wait until after the watershed, like it's some kind of dirty movie. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it, really, this whole idea. But you made a good point there, actually. I genuinely don't want to get overly personal here when it comes to Keir Starmer or other people like that, but do you think maybe they could start by, losing a few pounds themselves?
Listen, I've always maintained that the leaders of our country should set an example. What is the point of going to see a doctor and he tells you that you need to lose weight and you need to exercise, you need to be healthier, when in fact, when you look across the desk, he's actually carrying a lot of excess weight? That is not the example. And therefore, what I believe should be happening is that we should put in place the proper example so that children can follow it. So, for example, I'd much rather we had a system where children are banned from watching television, if you wish, before 9 o'clock, unless they've done a certain amount of exercise.
Before 9 o'clock is fine, but at 9 o'clock it should be compulsory for every single person in this country to watch this show, as far as I'm concerned. Look, I don't know if this is going to work, by the way, because I can't quite see where your setup is now. But I was wondering if you might be able to motivate me. So I've just got back from honeymoon and I put a stone on in 2.5 weeks, OK? I let myself go, Mr. Motivator. But now I need to shed these porridge pounds, OK? So is there any little exercises that I could do right now that might help with that?
There are plenty of things that everyone can do. The beauty of exercise is that you don't have to stand up to do it. You can do it from exactly where you are. So, for example, right, there are loads of things you could be doing, first of all, by sitting up straight.
Sorry.
Now, imagine that there's an orange in between your shoulder blades. Automatically, you've changed your outlook. Your shoulders have come back, you're squeezing your chest out, your butt is now going to get tighter. All right, next thing I want you to do is imagine you're squeezing your butt cheeks together.
It could be dangerous.
Right? Well, in fact, don't imagine, do it. Right?
OK.
Squeeze your butt and then release. Think of your butt cheeks as being, I don't know, the lift door and you're shopping, all right? You've just got in the lift. So close the lift door,
the lift.
Squeeze it tight. Squeeze it tight.
OK, I'm doing it,
Hold it there. Stop that look on your face as you squeeze your butt cheeks, and then release it.
OK, that's good. Yeah, that's nice.
Didn't that feel good?
It does. It feels good. It feels. I'm not sure how many calories I've lost, but it feels good. I suppose I could always improve in that department.
But Patrick, going back to what you were talking about, what would I do if I was the advertiser? You know what I'd do in every store? I would actually put a TV screen at the beginning of every aisle, advertising my product. But I think there should be a requirement that if you advertise your product, you also tell what's bad or good about it. So that way people can make sensible choices themselves.
Good stuff. Mr. Motivator, an honour and a privilege. Enjoy your cruise. So thank you very much for coming on and making the time for us. You have a lovely time, my good man. Mr. Motivator there, what a legend. Right now, coming up at 10 p.m.
Now, that's where they keep migrants and asylum seekers who've come to this country. And we know that the far right may be turning up as well.
Oh, yes, that was Labour MP Clive Lewis slamming anyone with legitimate concerns about mass migration as far right. Oh, but that's the same Clive Lewis that refused to take an illegal migrant into his own home. So how on earth can Keir Starmer seriously deliver on his promise to smash the gangs when he's got people like that on his backbenches? I'll give you my take at 10. But first, a 41-year-old man has now pleaded guilty to making racially aggravated comments about grooming gangs. He said that young white girls are being raped by these grooming gangs who worship the Prophet Muhammad. So are Brits actually being punished now and sent to prison for, in some cases, actually telling the truth? Former MP for Rochdale, Simon Danchuk, is live and he's next.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Millions are struggling to stay warm with the wet weather, the cost of living and, of course, cuts to fuel payments.
Yes, winter is fast approaching, so it's crucial to find cost-effective ways to save on your energy expenses whilst staying reasonably warm.
So joining us to provide advice on heating your home, or at least staying warm somehow, is one of the leading voices on lowering energy bills, Nick Miles. And you are very welcome in here this morning. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, in the olden days, you just used to put on an extra jumper. But actually, it's more serious than that, isn't it? What is the best way, the most cost-effective way, to keep your home warm?
Some of the bigger things is we need to do more things on insulating our properties, but actually sometimes, you know, it can be simple things like turning down a thermostat. You know, those that have got the luxury of being able to afford energy bills and keep their homes on the thermostat a bit too high. If you just turn it down by one simple degree, as long as you keep it between 18 and 22 degrees, can save up to 5 to 10% of your energy bill. So that's a kind of a very simple way of doing things. But, you know, it can be other little tips and tricks you can do as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I always get it when people say about this, but like 18 degrees is not warm for a house.
No, and it's twofold actually. It's that kind of relative temperature, but also it's the kind of drafts and things you have in your house. So it's the comfort factor. So what we have a lot of old properties in our country. You've got some 8 million hard-to-treat properties built before World War II that have got poor insulation, but also very, very drafty. So it's the temperature and it's the kind of the draftiness of them that kind of keeps us uncomfortable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yeah, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, is it really fair to smear people with legitimate concerns about migration as far right? And should those MPs who support migrant hotels take an illegal migrant into their own homes? But first, a 41-year-old man has pleaded guilty now for making, quotes, racially aggravated comments about grooming gangs. It looks as though he could face prison. The court heard that Derek Heggie made comments including young white girls are being raped by these grooming gangs who worship the Prophet Muhammad. Well, of course, 1 in 73 Muslim male adults in Rotherham were apparently prosecuted for group-based child sexual exploitation between 1997 and 2017. In Telford, 1 in 126 Muslim males had been convicted as part of a grooming gang. In 2017, 6 men were convicted of rape as part of a grooming gang at Sheffield Crown Court, with 2 of them shouting Allahu Akbar as they were sentenced. So joining me now is the former Labour MP, Simon Danchuk. Simon, thank you very much. Now, look, this guy might have been a bit coarse with his language, but factually, is he accurate?
It's completely accurate, and let me give you a little bit of context. I was the MP for Rochdale 2010 to 2017. We had the Rochdale grooming scandal. I sat on a parliamentary select committee that investigated the Rotherham grooming scandal. I helped many of the victims of the grooming gangs and the whistleblowers, so I know this topic well. I called it out at that time, said very similar things to what Derek Heggie has said, quite legitimately. Culture and religion was a significant part for why these young white girls got raped. There is no doubt about that.
OK. Now, obviously, I will make the point that, unfortunately, women and girls are being sexually assaulted and raped by people of all different colours and ages and creeds and religions. Fine. But when it comes to this now, specifically, we can't surely send people to prison for pointing out that there are Muslim raid gangs.
No, absolutely. And the irony in all of this is that if the police had done their job in terms of addressing the grooming gangs and they avoided doing their job on this issue, then we wouldn't even be talking about it today. Derek Heggie is being prosecuted for calling out police failure. That's the reality of it.
Right. Oh, so you think that this is actually a bit political?
Oh, totally. This is two-tier policing, as we've seen. This guy has called out, quite rightly called out, horrific crimes and is being persecuted for it. And it's a two-tier policing system and a two-tier justice system.
I wonder what this is, because it was the reluctance to call out or be seen to be stoking racial tensions that allowed the systematic child abuse in places like Rochdale, like Telford, like Rotherham, I mean, you could go on all day, actually, to continue for as long as they did. And that is a fact, because it came out in some of the inquiries that happened afterwards. Police officers said it themselves. They didn't want to stoke racial tensions. So now people see someone in court for this. I will just say as well, in the coming days, there's every chance this guy may well have overstepped the mark with other things he said. OK? But the facts, as we currently understand them now, as is all we can go off, is this is what he said. And what does this mean for people who want to try to call this out in future? Oh, gosh, I better keep my mouth shut. I don't want to go to prison.
And the reality is we should be talking more about child abuse because so that people are more aware of it and call it out when it happens. But I'll tell you something now. Keir Starmer and his Labour colleagues will not be calling this out, will not be criticising this prosecution because they are in hock to the Muslim community. They lost 5 seats at the general election to the Muslim community. They don't want to lose any more. They won't be sticking up for Derek Heggie. Though I have to say, the new Labour MP for Carlisle, I'd be interested to see what his view is on this. Is he defending Derek Heggie or is he defending the police? I think he should be defending Derek.
Why?
Well, quite simply, because this guy has spoken his mind on this issue. It's the truth. He's spoken the truth from what we've seen he's said. It's exactly what I was saying back in 2012 when the Rochdale grooming scandal broke. That's what, he's talking truth to power. That's the reality of it.
The idea of pleading guilty... Now, we can't go into, obviously, other cases where people have pled not guilty because there's going to be a trial there. But when we had the disorder this summer, there are a load of people who did plead guilty. And there is the question over whether or not they were lent on a bit to plead guilty. Do you worry that that's something that might have happened here?
Yeah, I do worry about that. I was thinking about that, actually. And/or he will have had a very poor solicitor. And there are many of them around. Just look who we've got as Prime Minister. So he's probably been badly advised. If it were you or I, we'd have somebody who give us really good legal advice and we'd put up a strong defence.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's not the case in this instance. And you've got to feel for him, really, because I think he could have fought this quite strongly. And perhaps, I mean, he's up for sentencing on the 13th of December, so there's a lot of time between now and then. But if pressure can be applied, I think this guy certainly should not be going to prison for what's happened.
Yeah, and look, like I said, more stuff might emerge, and I don't want to, to give this guy a complete blanket defence. I know you don't either, but we could just deal with the facts that we've got in front of us at the moment. And I think, goodness gracious me, if this guy's going to prison for that, then it's quite a slippery slope, actually. But, Simon, thank you very much. Great to have you in the studio. Much appreciated. Simon Danchuk, their former Labour MP. I've got a lot more coming your way, including this at 10.
Now, that's where they keep migrants and asylum seekers who've come to this country. And we know that the far right may be turning up as well.
So it's Labour MP Clive Lewis there, and I'm just asking whether or not anyone who celebrates a migrant hotel in their community should be made to house an illegal immigrant themselves. Stay tuned.
the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a lot of wet and windy weather to come as we go through the next 24 hours, and we've already seen some of that pushing its way in across the UK. It's all due to a system that's come in from the Atlantic and it's making its way eastwards, bringing some heavy rain, some strong winds. That's already happened across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. Most of the rain's clearing away here, but some strong winds continuing overnight around northern and western Scotland in particular. For England and Wales, it is going to be a wet night, but the rain becoming confined to the far southeast by dawn tomorrow morning. We are actually going to see temperatures rising as we go through the night, so it's actually going to be a milder start to the day tomorrow compared to some recent mornings. If we look first thing, and yes, it will be quite wet first thing across parts of the southeast, the rain clinging on, but it will clear away through the morning. Slightly drier further west, just a few showery outbreaks, but also some bright sunny spells, and a similar story further north, mostly dry, a few showers around coastal parts, and the winds will have largely died out, but they are going to pick up again later on. That's because we have another system coming in from the west. So although there will be a decent amount of dry and perhaps bright weather for a time for many of us, we do have further wet and windy weather coming in, particularly across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern and western parts of England and Wales. Here the rain is going to be pretty heavy at times, and those strong gusty winds could cause some problems too. Temperatures are going to be above average for the time of year, but not feeling particularly pleasant with the heavy rain and the strong winds. Most of that, though, will clear through overnight into Friday, and then Friday itself actually brings some decent, dry, sunny weather for many of us before another system comes in from the west later on, and this is likely to lead to a pretty unsettled day for many of us on Saturday, with some heavy rain and some very strong winds possible before a slightly drier picture again on Sunday. See you soon. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
Now that's where they keep migrants and asylum seekers who've come to this country. And we know that the far right may be turning up as well.
Hypocritical, radical, far-left Labour MP Clive Lewis refuses to take an illegal migrant into his own home. And...
Minister, your response today regarding frozen pensions was a bitter disappointment.
A 99-year-old World War II veteran has had her pension frozen. She's got a message for Keir Starmer. Talking of Starmer...
He promised that he would stop the boats this year.
I think the way to stop the boats is to smash the criminal gangs.
People crossing in small boats across the channel. We have to stop that.
He hasn't stopped the boats, he's stopped the oats. It's illegal to advertise porridge, but...
Allah has prescribed is truly beautiful, equitable and just.
A radical Islamic cleric can advertise on the London Underground. Also...
Manchester United dropped plans for their players before Sunday's game against Everton to come out on the pitch wearing a special Adidas jacket in support of the LGBTQ+ community.
Another Muslim player refuses to wear LGBT clothing, so the whole of the Man United team ditched the kit in solidarity. I think Islam is now officially top of the league when it comes to woke. Oh, and The Guardian went on strike today.
You, respects you and gets you round the table. So solidarity, everybody. It's a fantastic turnout and a really proud occasion to be here with you today. Thank you.
And nobody noticed. Oh, well. On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Oh, and don't you just love it when you see a man who's on top of his game?
That has brought this initiative to life. And it is through such partnerships and innovation.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. If you're on the left, house an illegal migrant or shut up. Next.
Good evening, it's just after 10 o'clock. Here are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The French government has collapsed as the French Prime Minister Michel Barnier loses a no-confidence vote. It means that the 73-year-old has become the shortest-serving French Prime Minister since 1958. The vote was sparked after fierce opposition to Mr Barnier's proposed budget for next year. He pushed ahead using special powers, which would have forced through the budget, having failed to receive support from MPs. That decision angered the left-wing Alliance New Popular Front and Marine Le Pen's right-wing National Rally. The Tories' bid to overturn Labour's controversial farmers' inheritance tax rate has failed after being thrown out in the Commons today.
The ayes to the right, 181. The noes to the left, 339.
The Conservatives had tabled a motion to condemn the tax, but after a vote in Parliament, it failed by 339 votes to 181. Labour had faced internal division over the vote, with some of Sir Keir Starmer's own MPs vowing not to break their word on the party's manifesto promise not to introduce changes to agricultural property relief. The government amendment was accepted without the need for a formal vote. CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, was reportedly shot and killed in New York City. Mr. Thompson, who had been the chief executive of the insurance giant since April of 2021, was killed outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The gunman, who was wearing a face mask and fled the scene, sparking a manhunt, which is currently ongoing. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch says this does not appear to be a random act of violence. It appears that the suspect was lying in wait for several minutes. Police in Germany have carried out a series of dawn raids targeting people smugglers who bring migrants to the UK in small boats. More than 500 officers launched operations in several cities, with UK authorities supporting in the crackdown. The smugglers are accused of facilitating deadly channel crossings from France to Britain. The investigation is being led by France, but the UK is closely involved as crossings continue to surge. Over 20,000 migrants have reached the UK since Labour took office in July. And last story here, it's a nightmare before Christmas. Guinness supplies are being rationed over the festive period as huge demands for the Irish stout threatens to outstrip supply. The Telegraph are reporting that pubs' bosses are being told they face limits on how many kegs they will receive at Christmas time. A spokesman for the company that makes the stout has said, over the past month, we have seen exceptional consumer demand for Guinness in Great Britain. We have maximised supply and we are working proactively with our customers to manage the distribution to trade as efficiently as possible. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in an hour's time. Welcome back. I think that MPs who are in favour of illegal immigrants breaking into Britain should be made to put them in their own homes. Many MPs have two houses, one in London and one in their constituency. So they've got the room. Here's Labour MP Clive Lewis saying he's going to support a migrant hotel in Norwich.
Some of us in Norwich will be gathering outside the Brook Hotel. Now, that's where they keep migrants and asylum seekers who've come to this country. And we know that the far right may be turning up as well to protest, hopefully peacefully, outside the hotel. That's their right, but it's also our right as citizens of Norwich in this country to stand there and protest in support of people who come to this country looking for help.
So Reform MP Rupert Lowe just asked Clive a reasonable question. He said, oh, hello. He's asked the Home Office to establish a scheme through which MPs supportive of illegal migrants can house one in their own homes. And he asked Mr Lewis if he'll do just that. What does Clive Lewis say? Well, it took him nearly half a day to come up with this pithy response. He said that Roops is kicking the vulnerable. He says he's asked the Treasury to hit him with a wealth tax. I mean, I think it might be worth Mr Lewis just reminding himself, actually, that Reform's Rupert Lowe gives his MP's salary away to charity every single month. Clive Lewis will not be housing an illegal immigrant. Instead, he wants communities right across Britain to have migrant hotels forced upon them and for taxpayers to have to pay for it. He doesn't seem to care about women's safety as hordes of young men from the Middle East and elsewhere descend onto Britain's towns. But then he has got a bit of form for this. Here he is appearing to make a joke about oral rape at an event a few years ago. Now, just in case you missed that, he says, and excuse my language here, on your knees, bitch. On your knees, But of course, he's a really nice guy. Yeah, he's a really nice guy, which is why he appeared to simulate someone committing suicide in the House of Commons.
However, I have to say in this regard that when he talks about...
And he really, really cares about Britain, which is why he made such a big student politics-esque song and dance over not pledging allegiance to the King.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles according to law.
Keir Starmer says that he'll get tough on illegal migrants, but no, he won't. He voted against tougher asylum laws 14 times when he was in opposition, and his MPs, like Clive Lewis and Nadia Whittome as well, shouting in his ear, saying stuff like this. The right continues to blame collapsing public services on migrants and refugees, and we must never accept that false narrative. Yvette Cooper, well, there she is, we know how she feels, don't we? Hashtag refugees welcome. And loads of Labour MPs are, or were, heavily involved in the radical pressure group Hope Not Hate. Guido Fawkes reports that government whip Anna Turley is both a director and a member of the Board of Trustees. Labour MP Sarah Owen is vice chairman of the group's parliamentary group, which is made up of only Labour MPs, by the way. Another of the campaigning organisation's directors also happens to be a prominent Labour MP and TUC communications Director Antonia Bant. Chairman of its trustee board is newly elected Labour MP Gurinder Singh Josan, reportedly. Hope Not Hate openly gives advice for people seeking asylum in Britain. Right? There is no way that Starmer can get tough on illegal migrants. No way at all. These people are, in my view, total hypocrites. They should all be made to put illegal migrants in their own homes. Let's get thoughts from my panel this evening. Got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, why doesn't Clive Lewis just put an illegal migrant in his own home?
It's a very fair question. I thought Rupert Lowe's challenge, it's obviously not a policy, was an exceptional one. There's a big difference, to use an economist term, between people's stated preferences and their revealed preferences. So you can virtue signal that you're happy for all of these people to come over, but when the rubber hits the road, are you personally willing to do anything about it? Clive Lewis isn't. Look, I don't know his exact living environment or whatever, but I thought this idea of if people are going to come in at these sort of numbers and you purport to be relaxed about it, that we'd like to lean on you, please, rather than your local Premier Inn, is a very good test. And I think those who are supposedly relaxed about the numbers of people coming in need a damn good explanation as why they're not rising to Rupert Lowe's challenge.
Well, I mean, Adam, loads of MPs have second homes, and we know that because we pay the energy bills in most of them, so they can't really complain they haven't got sunroom.
No, they are hypocrites, and a lot of them do not understand the damage that these hotels are causing in local towns and cities, especially a town. Look, a hotel that would normally employ 10, 15, 20 people suddenly has a couple of security guards and a chef. So that is dozens of local jobs that have gone. That is also a draw to the town. So the local bars, the local pubs, the local restaurants, the taxis suffer. There is no upside to having a migrant hotel in your town. That then, you know, we now have to talk about the crime that emanates from some of these hotels. We have seen murderers, rapists, paedophiles, gangsters, thieves come across on these dinghies. We've seen a lot of the high-profile cases. How many more do we not know about? In Europe, we know the crime stats for migrant crime, and it is terrifying. Is he OK with that? Are the people of Norwich OK with that? I don't think they are.
Yeah, no, this is it. Look, Nina, we know it's not all people coming across, but the point is that it's some of them, and I think maybe people would argue that that's some too many who are very much up to no good. Yeah, Clive Lewis there. What do you make of it? Should he not just put an illegal migrant in his own home? It's more kind of, oh, look at me, I'm virtue signalling. What's he doing about it himself?
Well,
we pay his wages.
I'm no apologist for Clive Lewis. As you know, I don't vote Labour. But I would like to point out, you're assuming that Keir Starmer is going to do nothing about the migrant crisis. He already is doing something. It's not a tap you can turn off instantly. You have got to put the groundwork in. Yvette Cooper, whom you mentioned in passing in a kind of, you know, sort of derisory manner, has signed a treaty with Iraq. She went there for 3 days. She signed a treaty. There's a new head of borders. There's that raid we heard tonight in Germany, which is headed by France and supported by the UK. So things are happening. Also, Keir Starmer went with the new border chief to Italy, to Maloney. Now, boats coming from North Africa to Italy have dropped by 64% in the last years because Maloney has paid with Tunisia and
Albania,
and Libya. And so, therefore, these methods are working. And Keir Starmer is putting in the groundwork to bring it down.
Just on a personal level, though, when you look at who's around you, so you've got Clive Lewis, you've got Nadia Whittome, you've got, that smorgasbord of different Labour MPs who are fully signed up to Hope Not Hey. How on earth, realistically, can the man, by the way, who voted against tougher asylum laws 14 times, leader of the opposition, actually enforce, even if he wanted to, how would he really enforce tougher things there?
I think it's extraordinarily difficult for him. Now, look, Nina's right, and that they are trying to do some things on implementation. But that won't be nearly enough. You know, I hope they smash the gangs, but that's, I mean, frankly, you know, that's just really picking at a scab. The real issue here is that we have a massive magnet effect in Britain because we are a legally soft touch. And if they're not going to tackle that and to say that the burden of proof's on you to show that your asylum claim is legitimate, not the burden of proof is on us to show it isn't, then you're going to get these colossal backlogs, even if you smash a gang or two. And I don't think Keir Starmer will find any real support in the Labour Party for a change of the legal framework. Forget whether the head of Border Force is the greatest person since sliced bread. You've got to change the law and the incentives.
Adam, I find
They're not going to do that.
Absolutely astonishing, right, that you could have a local MP turn... If my local MP turned up and was outside celebrating the fact that the hotel down the road from where I live has been turned into a migrant holding, an illegal migrant holding.
He's not celebrating. That's
He's
putting a
goading.
different spin. No, he's not.
He's childish.
He's going there to counter a different demonstration.
Well, he's welcoming them, though, isn't it?
No, he's not.
It is my opinion.
He's welcome.
It is my opinion that Clive Lewis is one of the most vilest, most stupidest and most childish MPs.
He's probably got better grammar than you.
You're showing yourself up there, Nina.
No, I'm not.
It's
vile, the most stupid. It's not the vilest, most stupidest.
I'm a publican. I don't pretend to be a journalist, OK? I'm on here because I represent many people that are watching tonight, and they would thank me for giving my opinion. So please let me speak.
You're always speaking, so I would never deny you the right to have an opinion.
Lewis does not represent the amount of people that someone like Rupert Lowe does in his rhetoric. The majority of this country do not want these hotels. Labour made a promise before the election to cut the use of hotels.
To get rid of it.
They are vastly up on numbers.
They are working on that.
We have now 20,000 people that have crossed in dinghies since Labour have took office. This is a problem that's getting worse because there is no deterrent and they look at Labour as free money.
And Nina, they won't... People like Clive Lewis won't take an illegal migrant into their own homes because they say it's not safe. We haven't got the space and I haven't got the money, OK? Well, why do we? We haven't got the space, we haven't got the money, it's not safe for us.
Keir Starmer said that the whole business with hotels should be sorted out. It's got to be sorted. He's not going, la, 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 I'm not listening to you. He understands the problem. He sees the problem. Everybody understands this situation has to be solved. And while we're talking about migration, it is a drop, literally, in the ocean compared with legal migration.
Once they send for their families.
Nearly...
Multiply these numbers by fivefold.
I shut up for you.
Right.
Nearly 1 million people were allowed legally into this country up until June 2023.
And that's a problem too.
Well, exactly. That's a far bigger problem.
But we know
it's
who
a
these
far
people are.
bigger problem.
The whole point that people like me come across on programmes like this because we do not know the past of these people. We've had murderers, terrorists.
Yes,
we
but
cannot
you're saying
track them, Nina.
the way you talk,
they're coming across with deadly diseases.
The way you talk, you make it sound like the majority of people are there, and they are not. They cannot be. It's not like somebody's.
You're right, Nina, that in terms of numbers, legal migration is far, far higher.
Yes.
But you might draw the conclusion that somebody who's coming over here because they've got a job offer to work in the City of London or be an IT consultant or become a nurse, you might think we got too many of them, but you might think, by and large, that cohort is unlikely to be problematic.
And they're contributing.
Even though it's much more numerous. And you might reach the conclusion that the cohort of those seeking asylum was definitely within it, there are some genuine people, that cohort harbours the more dangerous problem.
I completely
and therefore,
I
even
can
though
see
it's a
that.
minority, it seems to me that's where we should be placing at least some of our efforts.
But let's at least recognise that some of those men might be the husbands of the Taliban women that you were
very possible.
You were talking about.
It would be
it
would be nice if maybe they brought the women with them. To be fair.
On a dangerous journey, and if you brought them on a dangerous journey,
them with the Taliban.
Yeah. No, a dangerous journey across all of that and the ocean.
That they've paid $7 grand for.
If they brought them when a child drowned in the Channel, people say, "How dare he bring a child to that?" So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways.
I just don't think I buy it. There's no way on earth I would leave Emily with the Taliban, and I would make my way across Europe.
I'll send for you in a year.
I'll see you in a bit, unless we'd had a massive row. Right, no, but anyway, all right, OK, on that note. Coming up, I'll bring you all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panel and some breaking news tonight. The Prime Minister is preparing to unveil his major reset to his government tomorrow. GBNews' political editor, Christopher Hope, will be live shortly for the latest. But first...
Minister, your response today regarding frozen pensions was a bitter disappointment.
A 99-year-old World War II veteran has had her pension frozen after she moved to Canada 10 years ago. That's despite her paying her taxes and doing a bit for the war effort. So she's got a message for Sir Keir Starmer. That's next.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles.
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the second largest ocean in the world. And the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Guys.
Morning. I think the two of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions and we stood there at my porch and Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've got
GoFundMe page
social
yet?
media platforms at the Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up shortly, and actually our political editor Christopher Hope is going to be popping up because we've got some breaking news about Keir Starmer's big reset tomorrow, whatever that means. But before that, a World War II veteran has slammed Keir Starmer after she was told the government will not change its policy of freezing state pensions for British citizens overseas. Anne Puckridge, who turns 100 this month, moved to Canada in 2001 to be nearer her daughter. Now, she's one of just over 453,000 British pensioners living abroad who will not get an annual rise in their state pension. And she travelled all the way from her new home in Canada to lobby the government. Now, she met with Pensions Minister Emma Reynolds after her request to meet Keir Starmer was turned down because apparently there were too many pressures on his diary. But she was left heartbroken and actually disgusted after the meeting today, with the Labour Minister declining to overturn the policy. I caught up with Anne a little bit earlier today. Thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me and to represent so many of us.
Could you just tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about your situation? So you've had your pension frozen.
From the day I arrived in Canada in 2001, I've not had any indexation on my pension whatsoever. Moreover, when I came in, I'd informed the DWP in advance that I was coming to Canada. And like so many others, or most people, they were not warned at all what lay ahead and that the penalty of having our pensions frozen would be something we'd have to face.
Exactly.
And it's the silence about what happened, the fact that the government kept quiet and was very, very, came as a big surprise to us. After arriving, as soon as I realised my pension wasn't going to be indexed, I started writing to the DWP and said, please let us know, please can you let me know why I'm getting no pension? What is the actual, well, I use the word policy behind this situation. And it took 11 years before I had a written reply back from them. I got replies, but they all said either they were passing my letter on to somebody, other department that could deal with it, or they would say the government has no intention of making any changes at the moment. Okay. And the main thing was that they said you could have found out the information on the internet from our website. Now, in those days, many people, I fortunately had been working with a little bit with word processing and office practice, but you don't think of looking for a website to tell you things if you don't know it exists.
And you shouldn't have to, really, I suppose.
And if you don't even know that it's there, you don't even begin looking.
You are part of our greatest generation, really. And how has this pension freeze affected your life? How is it continuing to affect your life?
In every aspect of life it takes. So you can't forget really for any day that you're on a frozen pension. It affects one's spending and planning. Entertainment is something one has to think very carefully about. Special festive occasions we have to think carefully about, and I've got grandchildren. I would like to do better by them. My daughter's helping me, and both my daughters are helping me enormously, but I prefer to live an independent life and live within my means. Certainly in my case, you had to keep going with delving into your savings, which meant that although we felt, well, maybe we should go back to Britain and make Britain look after us after all. But
well, and you say that because that's a good point, because I can see that you've got a couple of medals on your chest there. So what do they relate to?
Oh, they relate to service that I did during the war.
What was that? Are you okay to talk about that?
I actually was in India at the time. My father was in the army, and he was stationed in India. We couldn't get back we were due to go back to England for 6 years when the war broke out. Unfortunately, there was no room for personal trips like that, and we were trapped in India. Trips being used for the troop movements. And so I continued with my education in India and went to university for 2 years. Well, at the end of the 2 years of the university, I was 17. And they were just beginning to open up the sister services, as I call them, in India, as following on from the ones in Europe. And I was so keen to join and get started. It was exciting to a 17-year-old in those days. You know, one didn't fully appreciate the dangers and the tragedies that were going on. One realised they were there, but they hadn't hit one personally, apart from what we heard on the news. Anyhow, I first joined up and I was put into a recruiting office, equivalent of the WACS of office work. And because things were so new, they said, we need somebody to help to move into a moving air defence unit.
Right.
Will you go? And I said, yes, I'll go.
Oh,
so transferred to the air defence unit, wasn't there more than 18 months, I think, when they needed somebody down on the coast to deal with, initially to deal with decoding. I immediately say nothing to do with decoding Nazi things. This is Nazi codes. Purely simple decoding between ships and the shore.
Well, it's incredible what you did, and you are a hero. You absolutely are a hero. You've had a meeting with the Pensions Minister. You had a question asked in Prime Minister's Questions today, and I understand that you've been left quite disappointed by this.
Very disappointed. We thought he would be an honourable man, and we thought he was a decent man, should we say. But the slap in the face that we got today was very hurtful.
What's that slap in the face?
In that he said they just intend to go on with the policy they've got at the moment, which is what we've heard repeatedly. The government has no intention of making any changes. He didn't use those words today, but they're what we've been told.
And do you think that's cruel and unfair?
Oh, definitely, definitely. As I said, speaking for myself, I've been very fortunate in that I've reached the age I have in good health. But there are so many frozen pensioners who, as they age, they develop needs for their old age, to cope with their old age.
Absolutely.
And they're in a very bad way.
Could I ask you a little favour, if that's possible? I don't know if you might be able to just look down this camera here with number 2 on it, and if you could just address the Prime Minister directly down there, because he was a bit too busy to meet you yesterday, wasn't he? So could you... Imagine he's there. Could you just tell him exactly what you want from him and exactly why it means so much? Is that okay?
It's okay, but I have to be careful of my language.
No, you don't. This show will go out after the watershed, Anne, so there you go.
No. Oh, this is if I'm speaking
just as
to
if
him
you're
now.
speaking to him.
Oh, Prime Minister, your response today regarding frozen pensions was a bitter disappointment to not only to me, whom I'm able to speak to you, but to the roughly 500,000 frozen pensioners dotted about the world. It's been a great shock to us to realise that to feel that we've been discarded by our own government.
Do you want him to do more for our pensioners and so that you don't feel discarded and cast by the wayside?
Definitely. As he's stripped. We feel that not he, but the government is now, and we hope he will remedy this. We've been stripped of all dignity and all extra comforts of life for which we contributed all the time we were working.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good point to finish it on, Anne, because it doesn't really get much more powerful than that, I don't think. So thank you so much for coming in today.
I hope that was what you wanted.
It's more than what we wanted. I hope that you get the result you want. Well, God bless you, Anne. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I just think when you hear people like that, World War II veteran, you know, paid into the system a whole life. Well, a spokesperson for the Department for Work and Pensions said, the government understands that people move abroad for many reasons, and we provide clear information on how this can impact their finances in retirement. With the policy on the uprating of the UK state pension for recipients living overseas a long-standing one, well, yeah, why don't you change it then? Why don't you change it? Anyway, the spokesperson said the government was deeply proud of our veterans and their families for the contribution they make to our country, but not proud enough to make an increased contribution to their pensions. There we go. I just think, yeah. Anyway, coming up, the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages have landed, and we've got some big breaking news for you in a couple of minutes' time. Keir Starmer is about to launch his major reform of his government tomorrow. Well, our political editor, the wonderful Christopher Hope, he's got all the details, and he's gone before anyone else. Oh, and it's nice to see a bloke on top of his game, isn't it?
That has brought this initiative to life. And it is through such partnerships and innovation.
Roll on January. See you in a sec.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a lot of wet and windy weather to come as we go through the next 24 hours, and we've already seen some of that pushing its way in across the UK. It's all due to a system that's come in from the Atlantic, and it's making its way eastwards, bringing some heavy rain, some strong winds. That's already happened across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. Most of the rain's clearing away here, but some strong winds continuing overnight around northern western Scotland in particular. For England and Wales, it is going to be a wet night, but the rain becoming confined to the far southeast by dawn tomorrow morning. We are actually going to see temperatures rising as we go through the night, so it's actually going to be a milder start to the day tomorrow compared to some recent mornings. If we look first thing, and yes, it will be quite wet first thing across parts of the southeast, the rain clinging on, but it will clear away through the morning. Slightly drier further west, just a few showery outbreaks, but also some bright sunny spells, and a similar story further north, mostly dry, a few showers around around coastal parts, and the winds will have largely died out, but they are going to pick up again later on. That's because we have another system coming in from the west. So although there will be a decent amount of dry and perhaps bright weather for a time for many of us, we do have further wet and windy weather coming in, particularly across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern and western parts of England and Wales. Here the rain is going to be pretty heavy at times, and those strong gusty winds could cause some problems too. Temperatures are going to be above average for the time of year, but not feeling particularly pleasant with the heavy rain and the strong winds. Most of that though will clear through overnight into Friday, and then Friday itself actually brings some decent dry sunny weather for many of us before another system comes in from the west later on, and this is likely to lead to a pretty unsettled day for many of us on Saturday, with some heavy rain and some very strong winds possible before a slightly drier picture again on Sunday. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Okay, right, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. It's always fun in the break. We've got some front pages for you now, so let's do that. The Metro. UK drug cash laundered by Russians, crypto cartel smashed. Apparently 71 Brits are among 84 held across 30 countries. Drug gangs turned cash into cryptocurrency. The Telegraph. China is a major nuclear threat to the West. Defence chief fears Beijing's stockpile as minister warns of armed forces weaknesses. There we go. Let's go to the Daily Mail. British Army would get destroyed in 6 months to a year of war. Well, I suppose that's assuming we don't win the war, isn't it? OK. Anyway, with Labour are under fire over defence spending, the minister has warned. So the entire British Army would be wiped out in as little as 6 months in a major conflict. That's according to our Veterans Minister.
Great idea to tell the world that.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
They probably know.
Well,
yeah, but it is bad, though. I mean, talk about talking yourselves down on the world stage, isn't it? It's like, look, I'm just saying, if anyone wanted to invade us, they could have it. But have I got The Guardian? I've got The Guardian. So The Guardian, interesting. So The Guardian went on strike earlier today with The Observer. So I was thinking, well, they've got a paper out. Well, the answer's yes, and you can't tell the blooming difference.
It's all written by AI, is it?
I don't know. It's just got Guardian staff. They've done it. They don't want to. It's all Guardian staff. They've put no names on it.
There you go.
Because they don't want to reveal who the scabs are. Yeah. But Starmer pledges crackdown on crime and bid to reboot Premiership. Yeah, it's the same stuff. So there we go. Right. Well, on that note. We do not currently have our political editor, Christopher Hope, so we'll go to him shortly, hopefully. Well, we might as well carry on where we left off with this British Army stuff, isn't it? What do you make of this?
Well, it is probably true, and we've allowed the degradation of our armed forces, I think, by sort of, assuming that the end of history had arrived and we would be at peace forevermore. And that's fine, and a nice little cost saving as long as it's true. Defence spending has fallen way, way too low. I think with Trump becoming president, all European countries are going to have to think very seriously about this. We have basically been subsidised by the US umbrella for way too long. That looks like in some way it's going to come to an end, or at least the umbrella is not going to be as generous. And we've got to take very seriously our defence needs. But we've always got to make sure we don't fight the last war. I'm a bit worried that we invest in infrastructure which sort of, won us the Falklands War. The future threats we face are likely to be different, but they need to be properly funded.
That's why we have a nuclear deterrent. We're a small army, we're a small island. At the end of the day, if anyone, it doesn't matter how big or small they are, wants to come and take the UK, we will nuke them. And unfortunately, we've got a Labour government that many of their MPs probably wouldn't want to press the button to save us.
And there's quite a few worries, Adam, about how functional the Trident nuclear missiles now are. I mean, there's been one or two scares around that.
Our fleet is... The new ships in our fleet don't work. And quite frankly, the last 14 years, the Conservative government was supposed to be the party of law and order and presumably army and security, have run our defences down. They've wasted so much money, for instance, on... Do you know about the Ajax tanks? They've spent billions on the Ajax tanks. They are not in service yet because they can't go backwards and they give everybody headaches. So there's a whole... You should look it up. Ajax tanks.
Oh, that tank's giving me a headache.
No,
that's
seriously.
One, isn't it?
No, seriously.
I don't doubt you, but it's just it's a novel excuse, isn't it?
So we're trying to play catch-up, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, and also the conditions that, unfortunately, our armed forces have to live in. Then you've also got the way that we treat our veterans all too often in this country. And it does make it, I think, a little bit unappealing. That's before we've started on whether or not actually we're introducing a lot of people in this country who wouldn't necessarily fight for this country. Yeah, it's a problem. And there's another story that's doing the rounds today that we actually touched on a little bit earlier. And a 41-year-old man has now pleaded guilty to making racially aggravated comments about grooming gangs. He could face a bit of time in prison for this. So he's called Derek Heggie. He made comments including this. He says young white girls are being raped by these grooming gangs who worship the Prophet Muhammad. Now, you know, there may well be more stuff, as I repeatedly said at the time, that comes out about this guy where he's seriously gone beyond the pale and all of that stuff. But, I mean, Nina, what he said there appears to be factually accurate. Should he go to prison for that?
Well, look, we don't know what the other things, but of course, what he's saying is inflammatory. There may be truth in some aspects of it. There may be truth, but other than that, you know, it's like you say, you're constantly catastrophizing about who's coming in and what they're going to do.
We've seen murders, we've seen rapes, and I will continue to do so.
Give me the numbers.
Give
me the numbers. How many rapes,
Yeah.
how many murders? I mean, for heaven's sake, you just have to put this in a...
No, I don't. I don't have to do anything.
You have to make it balanced.
I've got two daughters, and I do not want migrants that are unchecked in our community.
The catastrophising of it, Nina, you might be right about, but the question is whether that should be criminal. But I think to your wider point, you've got to look at absolutely everything he said. Yeah. So if you said one thing that's true, what else might you have said that was completely untrue or unreasonable?
Exactly.
I'd want to see the whole transcript.
You absolutely cannot. And we have to be very... If you look back at the riots in the summer, we have to be very careful what language we use and how we use it.
I will continue to lose language if I'm correct.
And I will continue to say that you're catastrophizing and you're
maybe I don't say it how you like it, Nina, but I will continue to say it.
Why are you making women feel unsafe? Women are not unsafe.
Yes,
on the whole.
All right.
This is ridiculous.
All right, good. So, well, we've definitely got both sides of that story. So, coming up, the very rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and I believe we will be joined, Chopper, by our political editor, I'm only joking, Christopher Hope, with all of the latest on Keir Starmer's major reset. That's the big breaking news. Hopefully it's still breaking by the time we do it. Stay tuned.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
This is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of... they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route.
OK.
And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
They had turfs on the...
turfs. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got one more front page to bring you. It's the Daily Express. Excuse me, it's the Daily Express. I want farmers to feel appreciated. So this is after Labour MPs shamelessly back Starmer's raid on farming family inheritances. It is left to Florence Harris, who's 8 years old, to stand up for the rural community with a simple request, which is she wants farmers to feel appreciated. Bless her. Now, there was a vote in Parliament today on this, and Labour did not vote with their conscience. They appeared to vote politically. Mark, could you explain what went on? Can I also just quickly say, on the 11th of December, there is a farmers' protest, this time with added tractors, I believe, and I'm going to be reporting from that. So I look forward to maybe meeting some people there. But anyway, what happened today?
Yeah, so the Conservatives attempted to overturn this inheritance tax levy on farms. Unsurprisingly, because of the parliamentary maths, they failed. I think the Conservatives and about, 60 or so others, there's 180 votes to overturn it. I don't think there were any Labour rebels in that 180 or so. I don't think there were. I stand to be corrected on that. And 330 or so voted against. So it went down by 150, almost exactly Labour's majority. It had no chance of passing. No. But what's really odd here, whatever you think about the economics of it, is Labour has decided to pick a massive fight with a pretty politically active community for the sake of no more than 500 million quid's worth of tax revenue.
They're giving away in foreign aid to farmers.
Exactly. It's a very, very, very odd political decision. I mean, if it was going to wipe out the national debt, you might understand it, but this is cents on the dollar.
They say, oh, we need this. They always say this. We need this to fund the NHS.
One day.
Yeah, like a day's worth of funding, is it?
One thing it has done, it's a very clever move by the Conservatives, it's highlighted the hypocrisy of a lot of these Labour MPs, maybe some that have spoke out before. Now, if I'm a farmer and I've got a Labour MP, I'm going to be very angry.
And a lot have now, because Labour did so well at the last election. There's a lot of rural countryside seats with new Labour.
Well, this is what's going to happen, because this is what happens when you get a very big majority. You can get your bills through, and it doesn't matter all the fuss that people make. You are there.
So why didn't they abstain, or why didn't they vote against it?
Because they didn't.
They played party politics over their constituents.
So that is politics, and it's from time immemorial.
That's true. But they said they was going to change politics for the better.
You would have thought, though, Nina, that the rural community MP, Labour MPs, the new ones, really, would have been able to knock on Keir Starmer's door and say, look, if we want any chance of winning this seat the next time round, I'm going to have to vote against this, right? So that's what I'm going to do. But you've got my full support, and he probably would have just gone, yeah, all right. Well, no, he should have done.
No.
But that wasn't the case, was it?
I think at this stage of the game, when we're so, we're not far into the government, he's said to everybody, you toe the line, I'm cracking the whip, and that's
that. And they will pay for that.
Guys, sorry to cut you all off in your prime, but I do believe that we are able to go to Christopher Hope, our political editor. Sorry, Chopper, I demoted you there, I'm afraid, my good man, for no reason whatsoever, because Keir Starmer's doing his Great Reset tomorrow. And can I also just give a shameless plug to my wife, who is in Grimsby as we speak, and is going to be in Grimsby all day tomorrow, covering how the people of Grimsby feel about Starmer's Great Reset. Christopher, great to see you. What's going on? What's the inside scoop?
Well, tomorrow we'll be hearing from Sir Keir Starmer. He's the Prime Minister, of course. It's a reset in the sense that we're calling it a reset. He's saying it's not a reset. He wants to force the pace of reform. They want to try and give us deliverable outcomes, ways to measure the success of this government, Patrick. You might argue, why didn't we hear all this on day one of this new government? It's taken 5 months to pull together these measurables, the ways they're going to show us they can deliver elements of their administration. Now, there are 5 targets for this government they're looking at. If I read them out to you quickly, Patrick, the economy, healthcare, education, crime, net zero. There's one missing from there, isn't there? You might think is important: migration. So illegal and legal migration. There's no distinct target, a mission, but we're told that falls in both crime and security. So we're waiting to hear more from the PM tomorrow. It's a big moment. The entire cabinet should be there, I imagine. There'll be a document, maybe 30 pages long, which will set out how we can judge collectively, GB News viewers, voters, anyone can judge the success of this administration. So far, we've heard from them. It's been a wobbly start, hasn't it? They've lost their chief of staff, Sue Gray. Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, resigned last Friday. There's been difficulties with controversial tax increases, notably on the winter fuel payment, and also the increase in employers' national insurance, which has levied huge amounts of money payable to charities and everyone, and also, of course, the farming tax. Big issues, I think, big choices being made by this government. And finally, Patrick, we will have a chance to judge their success on their own terms ahead of the next election.
This is good. This is good. It's a big day tomorrow. He's going to set his stall out. There can be no real coming back from it. You know, you have the election, then they saw there was this quotes unquote black hole, so they revised things. Well, now this is him saying, OK, here it is. We'll see how it's received. We'll be seeing it from around the country tomorrow. People of Grimsby being a large chunk of them. Christopher, thank you very much, and I really do appreciate you coming on, especially at this late hour. So thank you for making yourself available to us here on Patrick Christys tonight. Christopher Hope, there, what a lovely chap he is. We've just got time now for Greatest Britain Union Jackass. Mark, who's your Greatest Britain?
Oh, I've got a brilliant nominee. It's Jim Allister, who's the Unionist MP for North Antrim. He's got a really important private members bill in on Friday, which I think would solve the Northern Ireland Irish Sea Brexit problem.
Gosh.
Last Friday, we had a whole swathe of MPs turning up for assisted dying. Very important vote. I really hope a whole swathe of MPs turn up for this. RestoreTheUnion.co.uk is his website. Okay. Thank God he's put it forward.
Good start. Go on.
My nomination is Nigel Farage for turning the award ceremony crowds around from mocking him to suddenly very quiet and very worried about his popularity going forward. They're worried about the next general election.
I dare say they are. Nina?
Ed Davey, for once again putting himself up for ridicule by releasing a Christmas single, which is for a very good cause, the Bach Young Carers Choir. But you know, there's 72 of them in Parliament, and and a lot of them are there because of raising the profile by all the stunts he did in summer. So good on him. This is a good thing for charity.
OK, all right. Well, look, I could go for any of them, I think, actually. I think I'll probably go for Nigel Farage, but there we are. Who's your Union Jackass?
Heidi Alexander, our new Transport Secretary, who you would have thought should hit the ground running, doesn't know how much it would cost to renationalise rail. Okay. God help us.
Got to be very
Mine
quick.
is the Labour government for what is going to be thousands of pensioners dying this winter because they've withdrawn the winter fuel payments.
Okay, very topical.
Go on.
Very serious.
And mine is the Turner Prize winner Jasleen Kaur for her artworks, in quote unquote, which consisted of a Ford Escort covered in a giant doily.
Right.
And it's the 40th anniversary of the Turner Prize, and it should be dumped.
All right, OK. I'm going to go for the Labour government. Why not? Right. OK, look, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to everybody who watched and listened. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m, so I'll see you then.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a lot of wet and windy weather to come as we go through the next 24 hours, and we've already seen some of that pushing its way in across the UK. It's all due to a system that's come in from the Atlantic and it's making its way eastwards, bringing some heavy rain, some strong winds. That's already happened across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. Most of the rain's clearing away here, but some strong winds continuing overnight around northern western Scotland in particular. For England and Wales, it is going going to be a wet night, but the rain becoming confined to the far southeast by dawn tomorrow morning. We are actually going to see temperatures rising as we go through the night, so it's actually going to be a milder start to the day tomorrow compared to some recent mornings. If we look first thing, and yes, it will be quite wet first thing across parts of the southeast, the rain clinging on, but it will clear away through the morning. Slightly drier further west, just a few showery outbreaks, but also some bright sunny spells, and a similar story further north, mostly dry, a few showers around coastal parts, and the winds will have largely died out, but they are going to pick up again later on. That's because we have another system coming in from the west. So although there will be a decent amount of dry and perhaps bright weather for a time for many of us, we do have further wet and windy weather coming in, particularly across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern and western parts of England and Wales. Here the rain is going to be pretty heavy at times, and those strong gusty winds could cause some problems too. Temperatures are going to be above average for the time of year, but not feeling particularly pleasant with the heavy rain and the strong winds. Most of that though will clear through overnight into Friday, and then Friday itself actually brings some decent dry sunny weather for many of us before another system comes in from the west later on, and this is likely to lead to a pretty unsettled day for many of us on Saturday, with some heavy rain and some very strong winds possible before a slightly drier picture again on Sunday. See you soon. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses the road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out who's been ordering a private jet for Keir Starmer, who's breaking with Christmas tradition, and who's going to defeat misogyny once and for all. I'm Cressida Wetton, and tonight I've got Lewis Schaefer and Paul Cox talking you through tomorrow's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.